I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll find some time for it after this major project or life event has passed. Sound familiar? This is the voice that speaks to so many of us when it comes to setting aside some time to create something of our own with our gifts. We just keep putting it off because, after all, tomorrow is another day and today just feels too full already. Besides, there are no real consequences for not creating when we said we would, right? Wrong. I want to talk to you about the cost of procrastination when it comes to creating and what you're teaching yourself when you do this. Then I'll share a reframe to get you out of this mindset for good. And finally, on to the path of creating consistently. Hey, Creating Maven. I'm Joy Spencer, your Reframe specialist, with one important message. Your real work, it's not your job or your career. Your real work is what you create. And what you create is what sets you apart and makes you incomparable. It's your legacy. I'm here to show you a whole new way of working so you can create with your gifts, make a unique contribution, and finally get paid to be yourself. This is Reframe to Create. Remember that time when you asked someone to do something for you and they said that they would? Remember the relief you felt knowing that that thing was taken care of? Now, think about the deadline approaching and you still haven't heard from this person. This thing is important. There are ripple-on effects if it doesn't get done on time. You call them. They say, yeah, I know, I'm gonna get to it. You remind them that the time they said they were gonna get to it has actually already passed. And it wasn't a time that you gave them, it was a time that they gave you. You can feel that grip in your chest. Yet they seem unmoved. Yeah. When is your deadline again? Are they serious right now? Don't worry, I'll get it done before then. But this isn't what you wanted. You didn't want it done at some undetermined time just before the deadline. You have other things you need to build on top of this. And they just keep saying, yeah, I'll get to it. And you regret ever having asked them to take care of this matter in the first place. If you're able to work around this person for next time, these type of things can be one-time lessons you can move on from. But if they're in your life in a way that you have to rely on them from time to time, it can be excruciatingly frustrating. Even if they eventually do get around to it, the fact that it takes so much probing and prodding and checking in has one very negative and unfortunate effect. They're teaching you to not trust their word. And maybe things didn't start out this way, but with time and pattern repetition, you come to know that this is someone who you can't trust with important things, even if circumstances force you to entrust things to them. You know how this feels when someone does it to you. And unfortunately, maybe you're the one who does this to others and you've been called out on it. But what about the impact this has on you when you're the one who does this to yourself? Yeah. Think about that. What is the impact on you when you procrastinate consistently? You learn to not trust yourself. When you've decided that you're going to make time and space to create with your gifts, and yet you keep putting it off, you're sending yourself the same message that others send to you when they do this to you. You cannot be trusted. And even if it's not loud in your head, somewhere in the back of your mind, every time you make a new promise, part of you is like, yeah, right, she's not going to do it. He's not going to keep his word. And that negativity in your head becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it becomes easier and easier to not keep your word. After all, it's what you have come to expect from you. This is what procrastination really is. It's not just putting off, it's breaking your word. It's being unreliable. It's teaching you to not trust you. And that comes at a very high price. Okay, so we've all done this. We all put off for another day creating when we said we'd do it today. But why? Why do we do this? When we procrastinate, it's because we think we have more time. We think there is a later. We assume there is a tomorrow, and we assume that we'll also be in the right frame of mind, good health, and full of energy when we get to that tomorrow. We assume so much that we have no control over. This truth came home clearly to me a few years ago when a death rocked my community of friends. I woke up at 3 a.m. one night, rolled over, only to find that I had 4 back-to-back missed calls from 2 different friends. I knew it couldn't be good news. When I called one of them back, she told me that one of our mutual friends had just died. This wasn't just anyone. This was a friend who was the definition of being full of life. She was someone I could tell was tapped into her creating power. She was putting her fire and gifts out into the world. She was taking no prisoners. She was an inspiration to all of us. And then, just like that, she was gone. And so young. I was shocked. I was shook. We all were. Her funeral was packed, and amidst all the tears and sadness and loss, there was this common thread of admiration and respect from all quarters. Young and old, men and women, everyone was so inspired by her life and how she'd chosen to create beautiful things and put them out into the world. She wasted no time doing this. She didn't wait until she was older, richer, or for a more convenient time. She did it right there, right then. And we were all better for the fact that she never waited for the right time. She made the right time, the one she had, and was already living in. For months after her funeral, I couldn't get this thought out of my head. You don't have time. You don't have time. People say this all the time, that they don't have time for things, but in reality, they mean the complete opposite. They don't really think that they're out of time. They think they have all the time in the world. And if you think about it, you know that at times this is true for you too. You've said, I don't have time to create right now, with the full expectation that there is a better time for this later in the future. You said it with the full expectation that there is a later that you can kick this down the road to. But we've lived long enough that we should know better. You know there are no guarantees. You know tomorrow is not promised. You know that the only time you really have is now, the time you've been gifted today. In order for this to really sink in and make a difference, you need a reframe. We all need a reframe. We need to drop the frame. That is, we need to stop telling ourselves the stories that have us thinking that there's always a later. It's this type of thinking that keeps you and I procrastinating. It's this type of thinking that keeps you kicking things down the road and that teaches you that you can't trust yourself to create what you said you would when you said you would do it. You need a reframe that's more like this. I don't have time. I don't have time to delay creating. I don't have time to procrastinate. I don't have time for a lack of confidence. I don't have time for comparing. I don't have time for imposter syndrome. I don't have time for perfectionism. I don't have time for anything that's getting in the way of me creating with my gifts now. What I have is my responsibility today to do something that is an investment in this gift. I literally don't have time for the rest of it. And you don't. So whenever next you think you want to put off for another day spending some time creating, I want you to say to yourself, I don't have time. And then I want you to spend at least 3 minutes creating. I do this every single day at a set time. When my alarm goes off for my creating time, I get to creating. I don't put pressure on myself to make it pretty. I just get on with it because it's important for me to build trust and the identity as someone who creates consistently. Tomorrow never comes. Tomorrow is not guaranteed, but you've been living like it is. And real talk, I feel I can say this to you because we've been together for a while now, and I know I care about you and your gifts and what you have to offer to the world. When you do this, you're being reckless with your gifts. And that hurts all of us. It hurts those around you who you are assigned to serve. I want better for you. At the end of it all, don't you want it to be said of you that you were doing it, not that you were thinking about it or talking about it, but that you'd stepped out into the world bravely, fully committed to creating beautiful things and experiences with your gifts. I want this for you, and I know you want it too. So the next time you want to put off time that you set aside to create, I want you to ask and answer these 2 questions. 1, what am I teaching myself by putting this off? The answer, I've already told you, is that you're teaching yourself not to trust you. And 2, ask yourself, why can't I put this off till tomorrow? The answer, as I've shared, is you don't have time. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. All you have is now. I really hope that after listening to today's episode, it's going to be the last time that you put off setting aside time to create. If you need help figuring out how to do this, it's as easy as picking up a creative hygiene practice as I detail in episode 6. You can also hear me walk my guest Chitty through how to develop her own in episode 15. All it takes is at least 3 minutes a day of you investing in creating with your gifts. And I know you've got 3 minutes a day for this. You don't have time to delay on this any longer. And we, the waiting world, have missed out on what you have to offer for far too long. If you didn't take on my challenge from episode 15 to set up your own creative hygiene practice to create for 3 to 15 minutes, then I'm challenging you again, for real this time. Set a time and alarm to create every day and try it for the next 7 days. Then email me at joy@reframetocreate.com to tell me how it's going. Now, if you did take me up on my offer last time, then good for you. And I still want to hear how it went. What was hard about it? What was easy? What tweaks did you make to help you be successful? I'm here to support you and cheer you on this journey. So let me know how it's going. I'm sure I'll learn something from you, and who knows, maybe you'll get a mention on an upcoming episode. Remember, you don't have time. So this week, don't just ask, what will I create? But be sure that you can say to yourself when the week is up, yes, I made time to create.